Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome back to those who've been on here before. This is our third session. I promise you, I'm not going to talk that much this time. You'll actually hear from different people. And to those who haven't come to a session yet, welcome. Today, I'm excited that we are going to be talking about the pyramid model. Joining me today is Rob Corso, the Pyramid Model Consortium Executive Director. Donna Nylander, who is our state lead consultant for the pyramid model. And Donna's also worked at the state level in Illinois, and she also was a former program administrator. And Tanya Williams, who is the current principal at the Dr. James Mitchum Center, Early Childhood Center in Valley View School District. Before I let them take it away, I wanted to just level set a few things for you in regards to Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion. So you will hear more about the Illinois State Pyramid Model Leadership Team during the presentation today. The State Board of Education does have representation on the state leadership team. The state has dedicated state and federal money to provide support to programs on the pyramid model, which you will hear a lot about today. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear that pyramid model costs are allowable in your Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion grant. That can include time that staff is needing to take training, supplies that you may need to implement, travel costs, registration fees, coaching fees. Those are all part allowable expenses in your budget. For Preschool for All expansion, we do require that programs have a plan to support teachers in addressing social emotional needs and challenging behaviors, and that you adopt a model for social emotional learning. That can be the pyramid model. Some of our programs also have different social emotional curriculums that they use, but I believe today you'll hear about how the pyramid model can support that as well if you are using a different curriculum. We wanted to get a sense of how many programs have already been engaging at some level with the pyramid model or have taken some training. So we're going to put up a poll here. And we would like you to tell us that I don't see the poll for some reason. So, oh, there we go. How familiar you are with the pyramid model. So if you've never had training, you've never done anything with the pyramid model, you're at the not at all familiar. If you've been through training, you've been implementing, you're very familiar, and then somewhere in between. So if you could please answer that for us, we'd like to see where everybody's at.
It looks like we're most of the way there.
Yep. So I am going to hand it over to Rob and start our presentation.
All right, terrific. So it looks like just over half are familiar, very familiar. Another quarter, somewhat familiar, and then the last quarter, not at all familiar, or just a little familiar here. So that's helpful. So let's see, Susie, do I need to do share results or? I'm not sure what happens here. Do you all see the results live?
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, terrific. So as Jenny mentioned, I'm the executive director for the Pyramid Model Consortium. In terms of history, Pyramid was actually born in Illinois 21 years ago in Champaign at the University of Illinois. We had funding from Office of Head Start and Office of Child Care to develop the model here. So we'll share a little bit about the model and what's happening in the nation. And then Donna's going to drill down a little bit more what's happening in the state as a whole. And then Tanya's going to share about what it looks like at one specific site here. Is the poll still showing on your screen, or do I need to make that go away, or is it not over the slide? Can't tell what you guys are seeing.
You're good, Rob. You're good. It's not on.
You're not seeing the poll? Okay. I still see the poll, but I'll make it go away here. So the pyramid model is a framework. So it is not a curriculum, as Jenny was alluding to. It is a model, basically a public health model what do we want for all kids in Illinois? What do we want to do to make sure we're preventing challenging behavior? How do we individualize to make sure all children are successful in your programs, regardless of whatever the unique learning needs might be, dual language learning, disability, challenging behavior, or again, just need to individualize to make sure all kids are successful. So the blue area is universal, what we want for all kids. We want all kids to be in nurturing, responsive caregiving and high quality environments, whether that's in a PFA, PFAE site, their home, a community-based setting. That's what we want for all kids. The green is the intentional teaching of friendship skills, impulse control, emotional literacy, anger management, those sort of things here. And then again, the top of the pyramid is having systems and strategies in place when we need to make sure children are supported, families are supported, teachers are supported in a way that allows us to individualize and not have anyone be on an island when we have more intense needs at the top of the pyramid. The pyramid model sits on the base of the effective workforce. So sort of the good news is we know what works. We know what to do pretty much with all the kids that come to you. The hard part is to have our staff use all of the strategies and all of the practices at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 all at the same time and hold them to fidelity. And that's a lot easier said than done. I have that little phrase up there of we're not going to train our way out of this here. So we recognize the kids are bringing complex needs to your programs. Families are bringing complex needs to your programs. Extra hard time as we're dealing with staff shortages, staff burnout, making sure we have well adults. That's all part of the pyramid model here. So I want you to see pyramid model as a systems endeavor. While there are lots of training pieces, it's certainly more complex to meet all of the diverse needs that we know kids, families, and staff have. By simply sending them a training and wishing all those challenges would go away. Not really what the pyramid model is. Much more a systems focus to it here. In terms of our work at the state level, that's really the goal, to think about how do we take practices that aren't our practices from research from early childhood education, early intervention, early child special education, infant early childhood mental health, take those practices at the universal secondary and tertiary tiers and help programs implement them. So they're implemented in a way as those instructional strategies were designed, or to fidelity. Again, not any single one of those practices is hard. It's doing all 152 of them all at the same time with a classroom of 14 kids with diverse needs that makes them complex. The second key piece is sustainability. So we've been doing this work in Illinois since 2017 in depth. There's 65, 70 implementation sites. I see some of the folks that are on the call here that are part of our implementation sites now. We want to make sure that whatever we have built in the past is still with us 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I want to make sure we sustain what was built. And then certainly this notion of scalability here, so that we can truly do statewide implementation across all of the different sectors in Illinois. That certainly includes PFA, PFAE programs, also includes other partners like Head Start, childcare, family childcare, early intervention, home visiting, et cetera here. So those really are the key three concepts of fidelity, sustainability, and scalability that we're trying to bring to the work as we talk about statewide implementation. Illinois is one of 38 states that have a statewide leadership team that Jenny's a part of, that Cindy Barry's a part of, and Donna's been supporting over the years here. And that's becoming, I guess, more the norm here, where we hit over 75% of the states that have these statewide leadership teams, trying to get us all moving in the same direction. And social emotional development is just a natural place where it's in everybody's deliverables. So being thoughtful around how all the pieces in Illinois connect, that includes the infrastructure like UCPL, StarNet, Illinois Early Intervention Training Program, the work that INCRA does through the Child Care Resource and Referrals, and the SDAs that I don't remember what SDA stand for. Any help?
Service delivery area.
Thank you. So having all those pieces connect, and again, trying to make sure wherever you come into the system, all those folks that are working in those systems are moving in the same direction here. Susie, as an FYI, on my end, I see 7, 8 more people sitting in the waiting room here. If you can let them in. So 2017, and Donna will talk a little bit more about the Illinois team here in a bit, but in 2017, we launched statewide leadership team in Illinois. But you get a sense of all the states that are doing comparable work across the nation here. What makes something, some state, a pyramid model state, is having these 4 structures in place, having that statewide coordination, having a network of coaches and trainers that are internal to the state. So we can help do the fidelity, sustainability, and scalability, and have that all in-house in Illinois. But ultimately, the goal is to get implementation sites like your all's programs to do high fidelity implementation or use of those practices at the universal, secondary, and tertiary tiers. So that's really the model. You can see there's data elements across all 3 of those to make sure we're moving the state system forward. We're having the right level of supports happening for coaches and trainers, and the data elements that are in place at the community and program level to help make sure you have the data at your disposal to say, are we building a system? Are we supporting teachers to use these evidence-based practices? Can we see high fidelity implementation? And most importantly, can we see improvement in pro-social skills in the children you're serving, a reduction of challenging behavior, and efficient behavior support planning when there is a need for individualized supports. So those are the 4 structures that are in place in all of those 38 states, including the state of Illinois here for scaling the pyramid model statewide. There are 2 main entities that are supporting Pyramid Model Consortium that I mentioned that I am the executive director for, and then a national center called the National Center on Pyramid Model Innovations. As I briefly alluded to, Pyramid Model was born in Illinois 21 years ago under an original center that Office of Head Start and Office of Child Care funded, called the Center on Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, or the CEFL grant. I was the project director for that grant for the 12 years we had funding. There was a sister center called TAXI, the Technical Assistance Center on Social Emotional Interventions. That was basically the pyramid model supporting children with IFSPs and IEPs that was funded in those early years. When the first federal funding went away, we created the nonprofit to keep the work going. This other national center was refunded in 2017 for 5 years. All of a sudden, those 5 years are up at the end of this month, but they got refunded for another 5 years. So U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, continuing to fund the work at National Center on Pyramid Model Innovations. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free resources at the NCPMI website at challengingbehavior.org, in addition to lots and lots of resources off of the Pyramid Model Consortium website at pyramidmodel.org. Most of these resources are public domain, low cost or no cost to use. Most of the materials, the copyright is, you have the right to copy it. Even more so, you have the right to download it, tweak it, make it your own, and then copy it here. So lots and lots of free resources to help implement Pyramid Model and do so that at little, small expense or no expense. I'm going to pause, and anything, Jenny, in the chat box to be aware of, or all good so far?
All good.
All right, please feel free to throw things in the chat box here, and we'll pause every once in a while, make sure we're answering some questions, so don't have to hold them all to the back end here. In terms of the free materials, there are lots and lots of training materials for infant toddler providers that run birth to 3. The preschool mods overlap and run 2 to 5. There will be brand new sets of materials coming out on December 1st from the National Center on Pyramid Model Innovations. So if you've been familiar with the pyramid model for a while, know that the updated training materials are going to be released again in 3 weeks or so, that are publicly available, freely available here. They'll be available in English and Spanish, English on the first and then Spanish shortly thereafter. For those of you familiar with practice-based coaching, there's a heavy emphasis on trying to build internal capacity within your programs using the practice-based coaching model. So that's all part of the work we're doing within the state of Illinois. Lots of work with on the family engagement side, from parent curriculum to materials to help with the homeschool connection of what are you working on at school? How do we help families work on the same thing at home? In addition to targeted trainings around tier 3, around supporting children with disabilities, around trauma-informed care. So lots of additional materials that I'll show on the subsequent slides here for you as well. In terms of new stuff, if you haven't been on the National Center on Pyramid Model Innovations website before, or if you haven't been recently, there is about 40 or 50 materials added every month the last several months here. Lots of new interesting stuff to help with the family engagement piece here, including the Backpack Connection series and the Making Life Easier series. Basically the same strategies that we want you to work on at home through the lens of home routines. How do you help get the kids out of the door in the morning? How do you have good mealtime routines, bedtime routines? How do you help kids make friends through the lens of at home? So lots of the same practices, all through the lens of helping families do the same thing we're working on at school. In addition, lots of new materials around equity, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with here. The studies that have been done over the last 15 years around who are the kids that seem to be the ones that are getting in trouble. Why boys of color? What do we need to do to not simply admire the issues of disproportionality, but solve and address those equity issues here? Lots of resources here to make sure we're addressing implicit bias. We're looking at how we're supporting kids through the lens of dual language learning, integrated learning when children have disabilities. So lots of resources here to make sure that all of our work is done with an equity lens. In addition, some of you may be familiar with the online self-paced learning modules here. Illinois has supported through ECPL, through our partnership with the Illinois Head Start Association, INCRA for the child care side, the use of the self-paced modules here. They certainly were a great help during COVID, but I think they continue to be very useful in times where it's just hard with staffing issues to get people out of the classroom for professional development for long periods of time, to be able to lean in and use the self-paced early learning modules here. There are lots and lots of different modules, some ones that correspond to the materials I mentioned before, the infant toddler modules and the preschool modules. There are about 18 hours of content in both. We have a blended birth to 5 version, really had family childcare in mind, mixed age grouping. If you have a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old that comes after school, but some of it might make sense too through the lens of the work that you might do, or you may be part of an agency that has PI or other infant toddler work here to know that those exist as well in a birth to 5 version. Those are not just available in English, but also have a Spanish and soon to be posted Arabic version as well. In addition to the foundational modules, some modules on how do we make sure that trauma-informed care and pyramid model are linked, work around wellness and resilience, having some tools to make sure we have adults that are in a space where they're able to take care of kids by having adults that are taking care of themselves. In addition to those, practice-based coaching exists as a new e-module as of January this year. A few more e-modules that are coming this month relate to Tier 3. Prevent, Teach, Reinforce for Young Children is what PTRYC stands for. For those of you that might have been through that training, that now exists as an online module. Prevent, teach, reinforce for families is really how do we support families when it's their child that's having persistent, ongoing, challenging behavior. So sometime in the next week or so, PTRYC will go live, and then sometime in the next 2 weeks or so, Prevent, Teach, Reinforce, or PTRF families will go live as a new online learning module. And a final new thing that we'll have that'll roll out in Illinois probably after the holidays is a series of readiness modules here. So for those of you wanting to explore doing the systems work of pyramid model, there will be this additional free e-module on readiness series. Again, importantly, want to re-stress here, pyramid model is not intended to replace or supplant your child level curriculum. If you are using a general curriculum like creative curriculum and it's working, keep doing it. If you're using a social skills curriculum like Second Steps, Incredible Years, Conscious Discipline, keep doing it. It's not intended to replace those child level curriculum. Pyramid model is more of a systems or workforce development model that, as long as the curriculum you're using is evidence-based, and I'm sure it is, it's going to be consistent with the framework of pyramid model.
Rob, can I stop you a second?
Yep, please.
There's a couple question comments. So Natalie says there are so many great resources outside of intentionally planning to share a resource or two at a staff meeting or PLC. Any suggestions on assisting teachers and family support personnel become more familiar with these items? Sometimes our teachers feel a bit overwhelmed of where to start. And someone else asked the same thing. Is there a roadmap for starting, like what to do first, second, etc.?
Yeah, it is a bit of a problem on the National Center on Pyramid Model website that there is hundreds of free resources, and it could be very overwhelming to know where to start here. For folks that do the systems work that engage in program-wide implementation as part of your PFAE grant, you get a systems coach or a program or process coach here. And in many ways, they're there to help let you know the resources that exist in real time as you need them. So you're not having to go sort and try to find that stuff here. That is absolutely one of the challenges. There's so many free resources that it's easy to get lost. There is in the e-newsletter. So if teachers or you all want to sign up for the e-newsletter, you can get updates on what's new in smaller bites than just going to the website and trying to sort through all the hundreds of materials. There's also some Facebook pages that allow you to get updates on here's a new resource, and it's a little bit more one at a time than the hundreds at a time here. So I'd say that the 3 or 4 answers to that question, Jenny, are if you do systems work, you get a coach who will be there to guide you to find materials. If you're a teacher looking for resources, signing up for that e-newsletter could be a slower pace of regular updates of what's new. I guess the other piece is using myself or someone like Donna Nylander. If you're looking for something, we're just an email away, and we can help maybe guide you for what you're looking for if you can't find it. All right, I was going to just share one more piece of upcoming information here. We've been running the National Training Institute. That's all pyramid all the time for the last 17 years. Had to take a break during COVID, of course, but this event went live last week. It will probably sell out by the end of next week here. But if there's any interest in joining us in Florida, in Tampa, after a long, hard, cold winter, going to Florida doesn't sound too bad in April. Know that this event is available to register off of the challengingbehavior.org website here as yet another opportunity for professional development. All right, I'm going to anything else there, Jenny, that I missed or expound on? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Donna to drill down more in what's happening in Illinois specific.
There was one question I knew we were going to get this question. Would the grant allow for the cost to the conference? Out-of-state travel costs are sometimes allowable. If you email your consultant with some specifics, she might ask you some questions. But typically we can get some out-of-state travel approved. So email your consultant.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, Donna, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here. I see many familiar faces and names, and Illinois is a great place to work. I am currently the state lead consultant for the pyramid model. I work with the state leadership team, and I also mentor the coaches that are providing supports for programs. And I was a former principal and proudly administered an implementation site for 6 years, and I lived it. So if I sound like a missionary or a preacher, you're going to know why, because it's the proof's in the pudding. So what you're looking at here, so I'm going to be supporting what Rob has said and kind of look at it as Illinois. So we have a state leadership team. As Rob said, it began in 2017. And would you believe over 68% of the leadership team members are still on board? So that is an impressive number. We don't see that across the country. We are the 32nd state to become a pyramid model state. We always say we were a little bit of a slow learner since it began here in Illinois, but once we got on board, we're awesome. So this flows through the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development. So that's where the grants were written and how the program began, and the leadership team works through there. We have, again, 28 state agencies that are represented and provide support in ISBE programs, Head Start programs, and child care programs. But today our focus is on the PFAE programs. As we talked about, Master Cadre is this large name for our coaches. And when an external coach is attached to a program, we call them a process coach, because they are helping the pyramid model implementation process in your program. And they support the implementation sides. Once you choose to sign on, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And they go across the state and they provide training and technical assistance. We're always looking at the data. That's the piece that's really exciting. Once you get invested in this, and the thing I love is it's a framework so that you are taking something that supports your program, whatever curriculum you have, whatever social emotional curriculum. It just makes so much sense because you have a leadership team in your building, and then you're going to be working this up. So you're mirroring what's happening at the state level. So you're going to be, it's data driven, BOQ, those are the benchmarks of quality. The TPOT is the teaching pyramid observation tool. It's an assessment for classrooms that helps guide coaches, instructional coaches doing practice-based coaching and setting goals for teachers. And instructional leaders have told us it just helps them define their role. Before, they were kind of going on what they felt or their gut or how great they were, but this gives them a tool, a real guide, and all that's part of pyramid model. And the BIR is the behavior incident report. So we have a report that's early childhood focused. I know many districts have their own, or there's called SWIS with PBIS, but this really addresses early childhood. And people who are using it are really excited about what they're learning and how to zero in. I love to say behavior is a language. The children are talking to us about their language. And so that's what we give teachers. The more confident we make teachers, the more confident teachers become. Once they understand behavior, they're like, give me those kids. You know, I want to figure this out and I want to support them. Then we have the implementation science, and this is exciting. In Illinois, we have developed 6 phases of implementation science. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too, but that really guides you from how to take this approach. That's why when Rob says it's just not a PD model, professional development model, you are really embedding this science into your program to take all your staff along with it. It gives you this common language and consistency that provides support for program-wide implementation. And then right now, currently, we have 36 active PFAE implementation sites with coaches. So they have established leadership teams, they have administrators, they staff, teachers, aides, special ed, and parents are on board of these teams. So that is what the pyramid system looks like. Next, Rob.
Donna, before you go to the next slide, can you repeat what the abbreviations are for BOQ, TPOT,
Yes.
and VR?
And I'm going to put them in the chat as well for everyone.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. So BOQ stands for Benchmarks of Quality, and these are the critical elements that guide your leadership team in your program. TPOT stands for Teaching Pyramid Observation Tool, and that is an assessment tool that a leader, an instructional leader, is trained on to go into a classroom and look for the strengths. And this has a social emotional lens to it. And the third one is BIR, the Behavior Incident Report. And this is a document that teachers, everyone understands what they're looking for. What does challenging behavior mean? What happens? Consistency of it. And then that's where you have the dialogues, and that's how the data drives how you support the child. So again, I was started by saying we are blessed here in Illinois, and it's because we have had longevity of many statewide professional development systems. And one of them is many of you, or maybe all of you are familiar with, is the StarNet system. And the StarNet system is supporting the pyramid model. You can see how this initiative has been embraced, and ISBE has really celebrated it. And what StarNet is doing is they are doing the Tier 1 pyramid model supports. And that is the nurturing and responsive relationships. It's the high quality supportive environments, everything to get the program what 80% of the children should be doing when you have these Tier 1 pieces into place. They are offering cohort series, and that's supporting the pyramid model e-modules, and then offering support groups, cohort groups afterwards to have discussions and reflections and the application of the model. So that's supportive. You also can get credit for taking that the e-modules that way. And it's really great having that support, not just taking them in isolation. There's also book studies. There's a book called Unpacking the Pyramid Model that's getting rave reviews, and StarNet is doing book studies along those in that book. And then they have in-person training on pyramid models. So going to your StarNet region calendar, and it's regionally done. And we have the website there for you, and you could find out specifically what they're offering, what they're providing, and what it looks like. And again, it's for PFA, PFAE, and special education is their focus group. Okay, next. The other exciting program who is sponsoring this administrator forum today is ECPL, the Early Child Professional Learning. And they're awesome, and they support the pyramid model as well as many, many other things that they do. But in their support for the pyramid model, when someone says, where do I begin or how do I start? It's even a phone call to the ECPL to find out that you can access the free modules. And these modules go for 1 full year, and they talk about all the levels of the tiers of the pyramid model, and it's done at a self-paced rate. And so they're available in English and Spanish. They also have pyramid model webinars on cultural responsive practices to reduce implicit bias, staff wellness. And Rob touched a little bit on the new series coming called Readiness, and the Exploration series that really gives you an idea. This is where it begins. And it's exciting to know if you could have your staff, or at least part of your staff, get this foundation. Then our goal is that you really feel comfortable and ready to possibly consider becoming that implementation site. We have the website there for ECPL. They're so supportive and awesome. So just reach out to them, and they could tell you all the supports they offer around the pyramid model. So how does using the pyramid framework enhance your program? I mean, you hear pyramid model, we're not a scheme. It's a truly working framework, and that's what I love about it. So it really works for all programs. And being a leader myself over 2 decades, what I found by once embracing the pyramid model is it gave me the structure I needed. It's like, oh my God, this made so much sense. And then any curriculum you're using, other things, it just fits into this model. So it helps you develop a leadership team that provides consistency in communicating your program-wide expectations, your policies, and guidance on best practice. Thing that's great is you are giving a consistent language and a consistent expectation across your program. So everyone understands what the expectation is. So many times teachers want to please, they want to do what's right, but they just aren't sure. This gives you that school program-wide expectations and classroom rules and routines. So the language is very similar. So anyone who comes in the building or into your school or support staff know those expectations. And that's really important. The atmosphere is positive. And again, implementing is, you have action plans around those critical elements. And those critical elements is what we had talked about are in the BOQ, the benchmarks of quality. And in those benchmarks of quality, there's things as family engagements, procedures for responding to challenging behavior, collecting data, and using the behavior incident report. So you are really going along, you assess your program, you do that hopefully 2 times a year, and to see where the growth is, and then you set your plans around that. So you could see how you're moving forward. There's a structure here. It also provides teachers with strategies and interventions to support student behavior. And whenever we ask teachers what's the #1 problem, it's usually those challenging behaviors. And with, as we know, COVID and transients and family and all the trauma going around, we are realizing there is so much trauma in young children as well. So they're again expressing themselves through their behavior. So how do we provide the supports and strategies so teachers understand what that is and help the child learning problem-solving skills, social emotional techniques, and coping strategies? And it's amazing. One of my stories that I just heard recently is the little boy was having a meltdown in the classroom and the teacher was working with him, and another little boy said, let me go over them. He's not breathing. Let me show him how to take deep breaths so that it could help him calm down. And it's coming from the children. And so they are understanding what it means and what's needed when you get in a situation that you're not able to really handle or control. So those are the things that we love about the pyramid model as well. Next slide. The professional development is wonderful. Rob mentioned them. We talked about them. Again, they're if you go on websites, if you talk to ECPL, you're going to be able to receive these and use these as professional development ongoing for the next few years. We talk about this as a 3 to 5 year approach. One size fits none, we like to say, and that it does take time because you're building this foundation. So that's why we say it's just not professional development, but all this is embedded into your program, and then you decide when you want to approach this and use this for your staff. I love that it's embedded into other types of social emotional curriculum. So many people use conscious discipline, and that's great. And this is so supportive of that. So it's not like you say, oh, I can't do this one because I'm doing this. So that is something that you be confident that it's not conflicting at all. Everything is working towards success of social emotional development for young children. And what I love as well is it really is part of MTSS, multiple tiers of systems of support, because you're analyzing data of academics and behavior. So if you're using the creative curriculum or TS Gold, you're looking at those items and you're looking at them from the academic lens, and then you could look at the items in social emotional and behavior. So we also did that at the program I was at, and people really started understanding. They began to understand data. It wasn't, I gotcha, kind of thing, because they were able to see what it is and what can I do to enhance my program to address these needs. And it provides teachers and support staff that system for understanding behavior, collecting data and doing something with the data. We hear so many times teachers say, oh, I collect and I collect and I collect, and what do I do with it? Well, then you're going to develop a plan, an implementation plan, and working with your support staff on how to work with children up through the tiers and get them the supports that they need. Next slide. So if this sounds interesting, what do you do to become an implementation site? It's the program has participated in all or some of the pyramid model training that we've been talking about earlier, the either in person or the EMODs or the readiness series. And you have committed to deciding you want to build this leadership team. That's an important piece. And they usually meet monthly for like an hour or 2 hours, depending on the program. And there's also a financial commitment. Currently, it's through your grant, $5,000 for the first year and $3,000 for all years after. We have some programs that have been with us now for 5 years, so they can speak. In fact, some are here on the call. They could probably take my place and do this presentation, but it is just embedded into their philosophy and who they are. You get an implementation, that process coach to work with you monthly. You get a professional development calendar of opportunities that are not available to anyone else. And they're all virtual so that you can get your staff, mostly your instructional leaders, your parent educators. We really want to get them because what we are striving for is to build sustainability in your program. There's a simple application process to tell you where you are at currently and what your expectation is. You commit to this pyramid model system and committed to program-wide implementation. Then you'll be contacted by the pyramid model consortium representative. Then you receive a welcome letter, an introduction to the process post that'll be assigned to your program. We have a letter of agreement. It's like a MOU that talks about what the expectation is for you, as well as what the expectation is for the coach that is with you, the external coach. And then you review the document. That's the implementation phases. So where you're going from in terms of how you start, the beginning stages, then you move on to the installation of the program after you've done planning and exploration. We have learning the practices, collecting data and coaching, and then the application of practices onto sustainability. So that's why that 3 to 5 years is there, because we don't want anybody to think, oh my God, I'm behind, or oh, am I doing this right? But you move at the pace of your program. And this is how we support you during this implementation period. So how does a pyramid model coach support the program? Well, their responsibilities are they help you, they support that leadership team with your agenda, with looking through those benchmarks of quality, and they talk about help you to develop that implementation plan. What is the next step you need to do? What are the priorities you want to do? There are work groups, so staff are involved and giving input and feedback, as well as when you're confident to have parents on board or using your parent advisory committee. So you already have so many good things in place already, being a PFA program. The coach supports the training efforts. They support that internal program coach. We have the practice-based coaching. That is another awesome tool. Again, instructional leaders said, oh, this makes so much sense to me. I have like hooks to hang my coat on, something that is really meaningful. And then going along with that with the observation tool really helps staff and people see how this all comes together. It's that consistent behavior in language and understanding across the board. And it assists with developing a tiered support system for children with those most significant challenging behaviors too. And that's, we talked about that prevent, teach, reinforce. So how are you feeling? I just love Inside Out. So these pictures just resonate with me. And there's so much more to know, and I know this is a lot, but if you go to the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development, their website, you will see we have an end of year report that's written every year that talks about where we're at, how programs have moved and grown through the year. They talk about administrators and the things I love saying, wow, behavior has really lessened in my program. I'm seeing less challenging behaviors where teachers used to say, oh, all my kids have challenging behaviors. Well, now they're understanding that more. So that is a really important piece. And that networking with parents is huge. We said a plethora of materials are available to you, and Brooks Publishing is another partner of ours that offer a lot of materials as well. So this leads me to probably the star of the show, Tanya Williams. She's an awesome administrator, and I've had the pleasure of working with. And so I tip my hat and pass it on to her.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. So like Donna said, my name is Tanya Williams. I am currently one of the principals of the Dr. James Mitchum Early Childhood Center. And in regards to the pyramid model, I was one of an implementation model site under Donna's leadership when I was in the classroom. So I have been living the pyramid model for quite some time in the classroom, and then as an administrator, assistant principal, and now as a principal. So I am excited to share the pyramid model from an administrator's perspective. So let's get started. So next slide. So I wanted to talk about the impacts of COVID, the impacts of the pandemic. We've all been impacted by the pandemic. We know that staff, students, families have been impacted by the pandemic. We had to change our way of thinking in the past 2 years when the pandemic hit. Staff now are back in person. So now coping to just be back in person, to be resilient in the classroom, coming to work every day, and then dealing with issues that have stemmed from going through a pandemic. I know at my school personally, we faced a lot of FMLAs, staff going through family issues. So taking a lot of FMLAs. I think currently on our staff, we have about 11 staff members who are on FMLAs. And then we're facing staff shortages. And then also the staff who we have hired, just facing the instance of just staff absences. So we all face that as administrators if you're running a program. And then student and family needs are in high demand. So they are needing a lot more from us. And we have to be ready to make sure that we are able to handle all the things that are coming at us. And then the state of the world. The state of the world is at a heightened, a heightened point right now. So I know as far as our school, parents are on high alert. So any little thing that happens is escalated. So we're using words. So when parents report things, or when we report things that are happening in the classroom. So let's say incident where a child falls. So, students, our 3 and 5 year olds, parents are calling them aggressors, or, using those strong words, or my child was bullied. So, things like that we're going through. And then the reality is our students have been in the house with their families with hardly any interaction, and now having to come back to reality, and now they're in school and having to make sure that we start from the beginning with our students in our classroom. And then we must be able to move forward after all of that. So even though we have been through all of that, we still have to move forward. And now we have to ask ourselves, okay, how are we going to move forward, and where's that going to start at? So in regards to the pyramid model, next slide, let's talk about that. So we know that the pyramid model, the bottom of that pyramid is the effective workforce. And I think that before we can ask teachers to develop a nurturing and responsive relationship, high quality supportive environments, that we as admin team, as supervisors, that we have to make sure that we have created an effective workforce. Now, that is something that we're constantly working at over and over and over the course of the year. That never stops. So I want us to be able to keep that at the back of our mind. We just can't say, oh yeah, we've established an effective workforce. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the triangle. It has to keep occurring over and over. And we have to keep in the back of our minds that we as administrators have to make sure that that is in the back of our minds at all times. So let's say we're dealing with staff burnout, staff resilience. I know for us, a lot of new teachers who student taught during the pandemic taught during Zoom. So now they're in the classroom and they're faced with a lot of more things that they didn't have as a student teacher. So the students are actually in the classroom. So that has caused us to be more alert. That has caused a lot of anxiety in the classroom as far as new teachers. Some new teachers who are new to the field aren't able to handle it. So I know for us, we had 2 teachers resign this year because they just couldn't handle all of the things that comes with teaching early childhood. And then everybody's going through something in their own family. So being able to be responsive to that. And then admin has to be responsive and sensitive. So I always try to keep in the back of my mind that just like we want teachers to teach our students to be responsive, to be nurturing, that we as admin have to also be that for our staff. So I think this year in our school, we've tried to be very intentional about thinking about that. So the same things that we ask teachers to do, we have to do that as admin for our staff. So we have tried to be intentional this year with that piece. So let's just talk about staff buy-in. So staff buy-in for the pyramid model. What does that look like? How was it formed? How do you even start it? So we had to start thinking out of the box. We had to start thinking, okay, how can we show staff what we want from students? So what we decided to do this year from a different approach, we tried to model that in everything that we did to start off the school year. So for example, we talked about staff work love languages. So we asked every staff, how do you like to be reinforced? How do you like for people to tell you that you're doing a good job? So we had at one staff meeting, we started with having staff put down what their love work language was for work. And they had to answer they had to answer a questionnaire, and then they came up with their own love language. So then we had them write it on the board, and then we captured all of those thoughts. So we have over, I think, 135 staff members in our building. So we captured everybody's love language. We was intentional about capturing their work language. How do they like to be reinforced and rewarded? Then we started working on staff resilience. So just encouraging staff that this is not something new. It's just that we have to start from the beginning. How do you see yourself? Let's not take anything for granted. Let's talk about if you want a student to do something, or you want to teach them this, or they're showing a certain behavior, you have to intentionally teach this. Don't take anything for granted that the student already knows, or that this is done at home. So being intentional about teaching that. We had to think about taking a different approach. We had to model it for staff so that staff can do that for students, and then also so we can do that for our families. And then we also ran our thoughts by our process coach. We have a building leadership team here that we run everything by. So nothing in our building from the principal or administration point of view is done by themselves. It's always done through a team. Now, of course, the vision of the school, yes, I have a vision for the school, but I still help, but my leadership team still helps in every aspect of that. I have the best leadership team in the world, and nobody can tell me anything different. So next slide. All right, so the role of the external process coach. So we have an external process coach from the pyramid model. So the role of our process coach is we meet with her. She helps guide us through our thought process. We run everything by her as to what we're doing in the building, or our thoughts about how we can implement or carry these things out. So admin, process coach, our internal coaches, we meet, we look at logistics, we look at how we looked at how we wanted to start the school year and how we can keep rolling this particular piece out. The process coach also helps us think about things that we didn't have in our mind. So she has another different perspective. So she's outside of our school realm, but she still knows enough about our school and our practices in order to speak into how we can think about things in different ways. And then also she supports our training. So if we say, hey, we're finding out we need this training in a certain area, she helps guide us in that direction as to specific trainings that we need to implement. And then she also helps us with our benchmarks of quality implementation. So also, I'm biased, but I think we have the best process coach in Illinois too. So just saying. All right, next slide. So what we had to do was we had to ask our questions, and we had to ask ourselves these particular questions as a team, as individuals. So we wanted to talk about program-wide expectations because we thought that, okay, kids have been out of school. We need to go back to the basics. Even though we have been doing pyramid model for years, we felt that we needed to go all the way back to the basics because people have been out of work, they've been out of the building. And just to be honest, people have forgotten. It's there, but we needed reminders, we needed reinforcement. We just needed to give them that nudge that, yes, you do know this. No, we've always done this. Let's think about it in a different kind of way. So we asked ourselves certain questions, even as a leadership team, getting ready to plan out our school year. So how program-wide expectations help us to help each other and our students and our families? How do program-wide expectations help our families? How will we support staff so that they can meet these expectations? We asked ourselves something which was very an aha moment. One day we were talking about arrival and dismissal, and we were talking about pyramid model, the framework. We were talking about how the things that we wanted to capture in arrival and dismissal. And we asked ourselves, well, do all the adults in the building even know what the expectations of arrival and dismissal were? So again, we had to go back to the basics. We had to go back to reviewing all of the expectations that we currently had, but since we've been out for 2 years, people had actually forgot about the things that we used to do. So we had to revisit all of those particular things. And then we had to ask ourselves, well, how will we know if we're making progress as a staff to work together effectively and follow different expectations? How can students know if they're working together to meet expectations? And then how do we get staff buy-in? I think that was the biggest thing because, of course, being out during a pandemic, you have staff turnover, so you have new staff. So trying to bridge that wedge between new staff, staff who have been here for years, but still to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So we thought about expectations. Next slide. So I want to talk about establishing a leadership team. So our pyramid model leadership team and our process coach met over the summer months to plan our rollout of the pyramid model this particular year. We knew that, of course, we had to go back to the basics. We knew that we had to think outside of the box, and we wanted it to be a real experience. We wanted to live it. We wanted to do it from the beginning. So from meet and greet, even before school started, we wanted to make sure that we were following that example to staff of what was the expectation when we got into the classroom of how we were going to roll out pyramid model. We wanted to be intentional. We wanted to show staff every area of our expectations. We had 2 to 3 hour planning meetings over the summer. We revisited our benchmarks of quality. We decided on days and times where to meet during the school year. We decided on who was going to be on the pyramid model leadership team. We decided on what month and what day of the month we were going to meet every month. We decided that the pyramid model leadership team would meet every month. And we're doing this all with our process coach. So with our building leadership team, our process coach, our instructional coaches, everybody was a part of this particular meeting to try to plan our kickoff. We did it with our parent coordinators, parent liaison, all the different aspects of our program. We wanted to make sure that those players were in the room. So for us to plan out how we were going to roll out the pyramid model for this particular year, our kickoff. And then we created our pyramid model leadership agenda. Next slide. So this is JMEC's Pyramid Model Leadership Team. So if you notice our leadership team, we tried to cover every aspect of staffing in the building. So we have SLPs, our social worker, we have teachers, we have a paraprofessional, we have our instructional coaches, our assistant principal, parent coordinator, our process coach, psychologist, our student resource team leader who covers special ed meetings and things like that. So we wanted to have a wide variety of staff members in the building, part of this leadership team, so that we can get everyone's perspective. So this is JMEC's leadership team. Next slide. So these are our program-wide expectations. So we revisited each one of them. So be safe, be ready, be a super friend. We wanted to make sure that everybody, first of all, knew the expectations. We wanted to make sure that students represented pictures that represented the expectations. So this was the program-wide expectations that we were going to roll with. These have been in existence for a while, but what we did was the Pyramid Model Leadership Team revisited the pictures, because you can see now the kids have masks on. So it was during our pandemic, and we wanted to show that yes, some students don't have masks, but some students do, because this is the reality that we're in this year too, as a school. Next slide. So planning for soaring into preschool. So what the Pyramid Model Leadership Team did was they got together and they brainstormed, just like our expectations for school. We wanted that to be represented during our meet and greet. So we wanted for parents to see what the school was about, what our expectations was, and how we were carrying that out in our school. So we wanted it to be represented during our meet and greet for families. Okay, so this was an evening event. School hadn't started. It was before the school year started, where we had meet and greet, where families came in to meet the teachers. And then what we did was we used our community partners. So what we did was, for being safe, we had the VNA clinic. They came with the mobile clinic, so a big old bus that had the VNA. So the VNA is our health partner, where if families don't have insurance or they need to get physicals and stuff, we use the VNA. They're part of our community partners. So they were giving physicals on the spot, or parents could come and schedule for physicals. Then we had our school nurses out there to answer any questions about physicals, to get physical forms out, to collect physicals, allergy forms, etc. Anything that had to do with health. Then we also had the fire department and the ambulance. So the fire department brought a truck, the ambulance brought a truck. So we wanted to make sure that we were visible in the community, that this was a community-wide event. We had our police cars out there about how to be safe. Then we had Be Ready. So under Be Ready, we had the classrooms visit, the parents visit the classrooms. We also had our secretaries, administration staff out there to help parents set up their parent portal. We use Infinite Campus. So a lot of parents who didn't have access to computers, we had different computers out there or different iPads to help parents set up their parent portal. We offered free school supplies out there. So even if the school supplies weren't used for our school, if parents had older students, we had a wide variety of school supplies where parents could take them, and they were free for their older students. We had sign up for Ready for K, if any of you have heard about that. So, and then under Be a Friend, we ordered t-shirts. So on our t-shirts, they were our school t-shirts, but on the back of our t-shirts, it said, be safe, be ready, be a super friend. So that was for each preschooler entering our school. And then we had our mascot is Jimmy the Eagle. That's a picture of him right there. So we had someone dress up who's our mascot person, which is usually our parent coordination team. So our parent liaisons dress up as our mascots, where families could take pictures with the mascot. And then we also offered food. We had hot dog, chips, and drinks in the back of the building, where that was close to the playground. So that brought, and we had over 500 families come to meet and greet. So that was a big, huge event. It was very well received, and parents loved it. So we were intentional about showing staff and families under Be Safe, Be Ready, and Be a Super Friend, how we as a school was implementing that piece. And it was a community partnership event. So it went off very well. There's a hand up, I think. So, Jenny, is there somebody saying?
Well, if you could just type your questions in the chat box, since everybody's muted.
All right. So then I also wanted to touch on our internal coaches role. So we have, when I say the best, in my opinion, internal coaches, our instructional coaches, our curriculum coordinators, they are phenomenal. So I wanted to talk about how they tie into the pyramid model and the implementation. So our instructional coaches serve as a lead member of the pyramid model. So we have 2 instructional coaches. So one serves as one of the leaders on the pyramid model leadership team, and then one serves as a leader on the building impact leadership team. So they sit on different teams because we thought that it was redundant for both of them to sit on both teams and then tie up all of their time. So we took one to be on the pyramid model leadership team and then one to be on the building impact leadership team. And then we also, our instructional coaches, they use the teapot. So we do use data to help implement the pyramid model for full day classrooms. And they also serve as coaches for the teacher. Teapot data is brought back to our admin team, to our pyramid model leadership team, and to our building impact team to help us, first of all, plan for professional development. And then it also helps us to see where we need to go. Where are the gaps? What do our teachers and staff need? And what do we need as a program? The coaches help the teachers come up with goals based on teapot data. So we use the practice-based coaching, and then we use some of that data to write and implement school-wide SMART goals. So we try to have a goal in every area. Under culturally responsive, we try to have a goal under our academic piece. We try to have a goal under our social emotional piece. So we do have SMART goals that we work towards for the course of the school year. Next slide. And then I want to talk about our early childhood mental health consultant. So the role of our mental health consultant in our building, she is, first of all, a member of our pyramid model leadership team. So you saw our social worker and our psychologist were part of our pyramid model leadership team. There is a mental health consultant attached to every classroom. So we have about 32 classrooms in our program. 26 of those classrooms, we do a blended model, and then 5 classrooms are more self-contained model. We have both PFA and PFAE classrooms in our program. So a mental health consultant is attached to every classroom. That same mental health consultant attends classroom team meetings and is a part of our SIT and SRT team. So our SIT team, student services impact team, those are meetings for our gen ed students. And then our SRT team, our student resource team, those are meetings for our students with IEPs. Which are all part of our problem-solving team. So we have 2 problem-solving teams, one for gen ed, one for special ed, but they all meet in accordance with each other, and then all the parties on that team consult. And then also our mental health consultant and our instructional coaches sit in on team meetings with teachers and help implement tier 1, tier 2 practices before moving into tier 3. And also our instructional coaches also are a part of our SIT team, which is our student services impact team for our gen ed students. When teachers bring up concerns concerning students without IEPs, we wanted to make sure that our instructional coaches were on those teams because we wanted to look at tier 1 practices in our building. We wanted to make sure that if a teacher was bringing up a student who was a gen ed, we wanted to make sure first that all tier 1 practices were in place in our building. So that's how we run that piece of it. And then also the mental health consultant helps teams create safety plans for students who may be having difficulty in the classroom, come up with simple behavior BIPs in order to implement different behavior strategies. But we also use our teapot data too, because we feel you can't come to us to complain about a student, but all your tier 1 practices aren't in place. So even before we move into, well, this student is doing this student is doing this student is a behavior problem, we look at first teacher practices to make sure all those things are in place. Before we say that it's a student problem, we look at first to see what are the implementations or tier 1 practices in the classroom. And then mental health consultants, along with the instructional coach, observes classrooms using the pyramid model checklist and then provides feedback to teachers and classroom practices. So, and then our instructional coaches also do practice-based coaching where they meet with teachers individually or in a group, and they go over different aspects of the teapot or different areas where they want to be coached in. Next slide.
Tanya, can you say again who your mental health consultant is? Are they an employee of the school or are they contracted?
They are employees of our school, so our social workers and our psychologists. So they are employers of the school district. All right, so as far as data, so using data to support our practices and to support the practices that are put in place in school. So every full day classroom receives a teapot at the beginning of the school year and at the end of the school year. Goals are driven from the teapot, and the teapot is what Donna mentioned earlier, the teacher pyramid observation tools. And what that does is it looks at classroom practices. So it allows someone to go in, it's a 3-hour observation, and it allows them to go in to look at teacher practices and best practices. And then what happens is the person who does the teapot goes back, correlates the data, and then they meet with that individual teacher to present the data. And from that teapot that's being done, that's how teachers come up with the goals where they want to start with their classroom practices. So it's very involved, and it also allows the teacher to reflect on their practices by looking at this data and then say, oh yeah, this is where you were low at. Where do you want to start? It could be many areas where they're low at in the teapot, but the teacher and the coach helps them to pick where they want to start.
Tanya, can you expand on how you train your teachers on the teapot before they're observed?
So we went over what the teapot was. We went over the different areas. So teachers were very well aware of what the teapot was, what the different areas were, what we would be looking at. We allowed them to see the different areas. We allowed them to ask questions about the different areas. So we use our staff meetings a lot to help with that practice. We designate sometimes after school time to do this. We designate sometimes our institute days to help with this piece. Like I said, we've been doing pyramid model for a while, but the internal coaches, our instructional coaches, help guide that particular practice. Oh, somebody said, Tanya, did the teapot cause any problems with their teacher union? No, it didn't. It didn't. We didn't have any problems with teacher union because we were upfront and transparent. We try to be very upfront and transparent about the practices. And like I said, it's all about staff buy-in and what you believe as a school. What are your core values? What do you believe in? So our teachers were very much on board with increasing their practices, getting better as a teacher, the social emotional piece. So we didn't have any union issue. And then even before we try to implement something, we always meet with our union representatives in our building because you do want them on board with your practices. So that's what we try to make sure that we have a very good working relationship with our union representatives in our building.
And it's an observation tool as well, so not an evaluation.
It's not evaluative. Yes, right. Exactly. That's and why
because an administrator isn't doing it, and because they're part of it. Once those items come out, they, as a team, the teacher and the coach, decide what goals they want to set for themselves and what they want to work on. So it's a really collaborative approach, observing this tool in the classroom.
Thank you, Donna. That's something that I should have said. That's why we allow the instructional coaches to do it instead of admin doing it, so the teachers wouldn't feel that it was evaluative. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. So let's talk about family engagement. You guys, this is just a synopsis of it. I mean, I can tell you, we can go through many different things, but this is just a small synopsis of pyramid model implementation in our building. So we also wanted to make sure that the same thing that we were teaching our staff with. So we talked about positive language. We talked about the 5-to-1 ratio, about making sure that you're giving 5 positives to 1 not so positive statement. So we went over all of these particular trainings with our staff, but then we also knew that, okay, how are we going to bring parents into the mix? So the same thing that we were trying to establish with our staff members. We wanted to make sure that parents knew what was going on in the classroom too. So what we did was our parent involvement team and our assessment team, we wanted to get back to the basics. So we have been gone for 2 years out of the building, not a lot of parent involvement because everything was on Zoom. So we wanted to get parents back in the building. So we decided to plan for our first pyramid model parent event. And that took place this year on October 14th. And in the morning, and then we also had an evening session, October 17th in the evening. I let the team come up with, okay, what was the best approach to this. So where do we want to start with our parents? So the same place we wanted to start with our teachers. So expectations, using positive language, the benefit of that. So our team decided that the importance of using positive language with your child. So that was going to be the title of the first parent event for kickoff for the pyramid model. So the team explained what the pyramid model was, and then they focused on the importance of using positive language in the home. The presentations was done by our mental health consultants, our parent coordination team. So we sent flyers home, we had parent signups, and these are just pictures from our pyramid model event. We had a Spanish session and we had an English session simultaneously going on. And we wanted to make sure that we were reaching all parents. So when we first did it, we only offered an AM session, but then we thought when we looked at the data, we didn't get a lot of sign up. So then we went back to the drawing plate and we said, okay, we need to offer this in the evening. Once we offered it in the evening, the numbers went up. So more parents signed up for our evening event. And then we also wanted to do some raffling. So if you see the picture, that's one of our parents who won the raffle, where we gave them things regarding the pyramid model. So things we were doing in school, we gave them puppets, Tucker the Turtle, we gave them books that we were using, we gave them social stories that we were using. So the same things that the teachers were using in the classroom, we put that as part of our basket. We gave them a piggy bank, we gave them coins, the gold coins that can go into the piggy bank. We made things for their refrigerator so that we could be intentional and showing parents how to be intentional about delivering that positive language in the home. So they were able to, we went out and bought individual gold coins for families. So if you see, I have one in my desk right here. So those were the gold coins that we gave out to families in order to be intentional about using that positive language in the home. And it was a very well received event. So that was our first pyramid model. And then we're also doing a follow-up. Our next pyramid model event will be in January, and we're going to offer 2 sessions. And then we're going to move in. We gave a survey to our parents about what do they want to learn about as far as behavior, building relationships with their child. What were the things? So we used that survey data to determine our next steps in the pyramid model and what we were going to present to parents. So it was very well received. Okay, next slide. So when we had our meet and greet event, so what we did was we made yard signs because we wanted to make sure that the parents knew what our expectation was. So my child is a JMEC Eagle. We're the Eagles. We are safe, we are ready, and we are a super friend. So every family received a yard sign. So when we gave them away, we said, you can either, yes, I can share the survey with someone on the team and they can get it out. Absolutely. We received the sign. We told them, because we knew everybody didn't live in a house or didn't have a yard. So we said, you can either display the sign in your window or you can display it outside. And in the meantime, would you take a picture of your child in front of the sign or in the window of your house so we can display it and display it on social media? So these were some of the pictures that we got. We had a lot of pictures, but these are the parents who said we can advertise it and use their picture for social media purposes and for presenting. So these are the 3 students that we picked to display their yard signs. And then we also, how do you get the signs paid for? Well, the signs were paid for because it was a pyramid model family event, things that we were doing for our families and giving away for our families. We did pay for it out of our grant funds because it was a family event. It was materials for families. It was part of the pyramid model. So we did use some grant funds to do that. All right, next slide. So keeping staff encouraged and motivated. So we felt that we have to be intentional about keeping our staff motivated, incentives throughout the year. So I'm going to show you a weekly newsletter that I send out in regards to the pyramid model, in regards to making sure that we are recognizing staff. So this is a newsletter that I send out every week on a Friday to our staff. So if you can see, okay, so stop right there, Rob. So let me just tell you how this came about. So this year, our theme is you are a shining star, okay? No matter who you are. So at the beginning of the school year, we dressed up in 70s attire for back to school. And then we also focused on the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, You're a Shining Star, no matter who you are. So that's the theme. So then now, Rob, go down. So in our newsletter, Shining Brightly, we wanted to recognize staff who were shining brightly. So we always wanted to make sure that we were talking about the pyramid model, the language we use. We were talking about the staff. So stop right there. So on every newsletter, we support the pyramid model. And then we also, remember, we want to make sure we're touching every part of the pyramid model implementation, so that effective workforce. So we wanted to make sure, it's hard sometimes for a staff this big for you to get to know everybody in your program. So what we do every week is we highlight a different room, we highlight a different therapist, staff. So this particular week, we highlighted our parent outreach team and then our B room team. So go ahead down. So everybody, we made a Google Doc where everybody went in and put their bio in, and we said, welcoming our shining star. We tell their name, we tell who they are, and then they tell us a little bit about themselves. So they tell us what they like to do. They tell us how they like to spend their time. They tell us about their family. And so we send this out to all of our staff members every week. Keep going. Okay, keep going. B-Room, Parapros. All right, stop right there. We had a fall family event. So this was the first time we had this many families in our building during the school day. So we tried to be very intentional. It was a fall family event. We did AM, PM sessions. We did for an hour where we planned these different activities, and families came into the classroom to spend time with their child to complete different activities. So that was a very well-received event. We got so much feedback from families saying, thank you for inviting me in. It's so good to be back, for the kids to be back in school. And they really, really appreciated us inviting them into the classroom. So that event was very well received. Now, Jimmy the Eagle sightings. So this is what we do as a leadership team. We try to do Jimmy the Eagle sightings where we're looking at practices in the classroom. We're going in classrooms, we're taking videos, we're taking pictures, and we're highlighting different staff members during the school year. Remember, we did the love work languages. So some of the work languages was receiving positive feedback. Some of them were they like acts of service. So this was our way of trying to show staff about how we want to reinforce their behavior and how we want to show our appreciation the same way we want staff members to do that for our students and our families. So I want you to go down just a little because I'm going to show you how we use our data to do this. Okay, stop right there. All right, so this was a classroom at the beginning of the school year that was having trouble with a lot of challenging behaviors, okay? So we got our instructional coach, we got our mental health consultant, we met as a team, and we put a lot of things in place. We even did a staff change, just the dynamics of a staff change, okay? So this is feedback from one of our mental health consultants who was constantly going in this classroom every week to look at data, to look at task analysis, and she sent me this and she said, Tanya, I think we need to highlight this in our newsletter. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of it because I think it shows the intentionality of the program and what we want to achieve. So it says, kudos are well-deserved for the ANT classroom, the names. I observed during breakfast, table time, transition to carpet, circle, and transition to outdoor. In sum, there were virtually 0 instances of disruptive behavior. When the disruptive behaviors did occur, these were infrequent, mild. She gave examples of it. Then she talked about If at least 11 out of the 13 students were engaged, I marked a plus. So she told us how she was using the data to show feedback on every area of the day where students were engaged and there were no challenging behaviors observed. So this is what we try to be intentional about. So just like we want teachers to use data when coming to us about students, we have to give feedback in data about their practices and how they have increased their practices or how they have overcome an obstacle that they were working on. So this was one of the classrooms that our psych gave feedback on. And then if you keep going up, it says our Shining Star Award goes to the Ant Room. So because we said everybody's a shining star this year, no matter who you are, no matter that everybody brings something to the table. I don't care if you are a parapro, the maintenance guy, everybody is valued in our building and brings something to the table. Now, does that mean everybody's happy in the building at all times? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But trying to create a positive atmosphere about the effective workforce and how everybody is valued. And then we talked about Jimmy the Eagle spotted somebody working on controlled choices with the child. Keep going. The Owl Rooms, the Shooting Star Award goes to. Okay, keep going. Our BIT team. So then we even do academics. So we talked about one of our SMART goals is phonological awareness. So we talked about the BIT team doing a presentation on phonological awareness. Okay, keep going. We'd stop right there. We talked about this teacher right here who was very shy. She rarely talks out in public, but we wanted to make sure that she was recognized because she wanted to share with staff during a staff meeting about how the pyramid model was helping her in the classroom. All right, keep going. This one right here, stop right there. The bunny team. This is a paraprofessional who's working on her PEL through Lewis University. We have that partnership, and we went in to videotape her because we wanted to make sure we encouraged her because she's trying to get her teacher license. So encouraged her about how she was intentionally keeping kids engaged during story time. Okay, keep going. That's one of our bilingual classrooms. Okay, stop right here, right there. Now, this is one of our stellar classrooms, which are students who present on the autism spectrum. We want to make sure we're very inclusive. So this was a child in one of our classrooms for students who present on the autism spectrum disorder, and how she did not want to go into this room at all at the beginning of the school year. She would scream, cry. We call it our discovery room or our sensory room. And the team worked on, okay, what can we do in order to get her to go into this room? There were a lot of interventions put in place, and look at her now, smiling. If you would have saw her at the beginning of the school year, you would have thought somebody was killing her trying to get her into this classroom. So we wanted to make sure we were intentional about every aspect of our program. Okay, keep going down. Keep going. Keep going. Right here. This is one of our full day classrooms about how they were intentionally showing students how to use the calm down corner, how to use Tucker the Turtle, how to use the social story. So the students were practicing this in the particular classroom. So we wanted to highlight that because we wanted to make sure to show teachers, yes, we see you. We see you're trying. We know it's hard, but we see you. We see you. We see you. So keep going down. I think that's the end.
At the top of the half hour here too, Tanya.
Okay, all right, sorry. It's 2:30 already. Oh my God. Okay, I'll stop there. I want to show one more video. If you don't mind, can I show one more video about how we kicked off the pyramid model at the beginning of the school year? So let me see if I can pull up that video real quick. Give me a second.
While Tanya's pulling it up here, just want to make sure folks leave knowing kind of if you're interested. You can reach out to Jenny, you can reach out to Donna Nylander, you can reach out to me. We're certainly happy to make sure you're aware of all the resources, including the readiness series here that will be off of pyramidmodel.org to help you think through next steps too.
Can you guys see the video?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so let me start it. Hold on, give me a second. So this is our pyramid model leadership team. Oh no. And if it doesn't work, then I will. Oh.
I can tell I love it already, Tanya. We got dancing eagles.
Well, that's our mascot, but maybe it won't work and I won't bother you with it if it doesn't work. Okay, so we won't try it then.
All
Hold on.
right, you gotta leave them wanting more, Tanya. We'll look.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it alone, but just to give you a little synopsis about this year and us being intentional with pyramid model practices. And that is all, thank you.
Well, terrific. Again, just in terms of next steps, if you're interested in doing systems work with pyramid model innovations, again, please feel free to reach out to Jenny, to myself, to your StarNet, to your ECPL. All these folks are well aware of how to make the connections back if you want to get a process coach. But mostly want to thank Tanya and thank Donna and thank Jenny for the opportunity to pull this together, and the ECPL team for the invitation to share a little bit of what we're doing in Illinois and how additional PFA sites might join us. Jenny, anything you want to say as a wrap up either?
No, I see a few people messaging me in the chat. Please, if you want to talk more, please email me, jmetcalf@isb.net, and I can connect you to the right person. And thank you to Rob, Donna, Tanya, and ECPL and all of you for attending.
Terrific.